Grant Baker is an entrepreneur and investor with an incredible story to share. He's open and frank about his journey, including the battle with cancer, his lifetime passion for cars, and helping Liam Lawson reach the pinnacle of the motor racing world. I reckon there's some incredible insights for anyone aspiring to grow a company into the valuation of the hundreds of millions of dollars. Plus, we also have a quick chat about his just released book. But we start with an incredible and surprising counter-narrative.
A lot of people say, find something you're passionate about and do that. And I totally disagree with that. I think it's find something you make some money out of it and do that. So I don't. Of all the businesses I've done, I haven't really enjoyed any of them that much. I haven't loved it. I've sort of done it, as a means to an end type of thing. We should buy that company and sack that guy, just like a throwaway line. But everyone kind of leant forward in their chairs and go, do you think we could do that? So when we got to sell, it was actually worth 200 million because the shares had doubled in value in that 6 months. So if you say money does cause you problems, because it does, because you've got to manage it, it's one thing getting it, but the next thing is don't lose it. And he said, we spent $100 million doing it and it failed. And he said, well, when we saw this for $100 million, it looked cheap. You just have strangers coming up to you, going to buy my lunch or something, and someone will come, I'll read your book, and I really loved it, and I feel so inspired. And the first day we met with Bacardi was the day I had my first chemotherapy session. Probably a businessman with a car problem.
Right.
I've said before, I keep working so I can fund my cars, but it's probably more than that, because I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't keep working.
Grant Baker, it's great to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. So the origin story of this is that you've written a book, and we'll come back to that later on, but you are very public and very visible about your Ferrari collection addiction. So at this point, are you a businessman with a car problem, or are you a car collector with a business problem?
I'm probably a businessman with a car problem.
Right.
I've said before, I keep working so I can fund my cars, but it's probably more than that, because I wouldn't know what to do if I didn't keep working. So I've got a restlessness sort of problem, really.
Yeah.
Can't relax unless I'm doing something.
Yes. Yeah, I think that probably equates for a lot of us in the entrepreneurial space. Idle hands make the devil's work and that sort of thing. We're actually better off doing something meaningful than not. Have you tried to retire?
Well, I've had quite a few sort of time periods when I haven't had to do too much, but I just haven't enjoyed them that much. And I always look at everything through the lens of, what's the business opportunity here? So even when we travel, I'm always looking in real estate windows and checking out businesses and stuff. It's just the way my mind works, unfortunately.
I think that for a lot of folk that go through that period, they have a bit of an existential, what does it all mean? If they try and, if they're used to having the presence and position of owning and running a business and the constant challenges that those brings, then we kind of wonder what it all means if we take that time out, and it becomes actually quite unsatisfying. That was my own experience. I've done the semi-retirement thing a couple of times. Did you kind of have that, what does it all mean moment at all? Or did you just keep on going and, head down and ploughing through?
Well, I definitely have had that a few times. What does it all mean? Especially, I think you're going to talk to me about it later, but, I got pretty sick at one stage. And you definitely, when you're in that sort of situation, you do wonder why you're doing it and what's the meaning of life and all that sort of stuff. But
Yes.
I just think in the end you figure out, it's kind of like a dream to retire and have lots of money and all that sort of stuff. But, when you finally get there, you realize it's not really what you want necessarily, and you should do what you enjoy doing rather than sort of what other people think you should be doing.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's a constant struggle for these days, for people these days, I think, especially given social media, and you've got quite a big presence on social media as well. So is there something that you learn about people over time is that they have characters that they assume, and they play those characters depending on which part of the world they're operating within? Is the Grant that has the big social profile and in relation to his car collection addiction, is that the real Grant Baker, or is that like the car Grant Baker, or is that something different?
Oh, that is definitely the car persona. Yeah, it doesn't go very deep. I just talk about cars. I love cars, and obviously Ferrari now, but I love cars in general. And a lot of people want to share that journey and are interested in it. And I can just, help them be part of that journey, I guess. A lot of young guys are into cars, and I'm fairly good at replying to people too when they direct message me and all those sort of things. So,
Right.
you get a lot of guys, girls sometimes, who want to know more stuff, and I'm happy to share that rather than sort of personal life type stuff.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we'll save it for podcasts. As it turns out. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So, Eric Watson rang you the start of your kind of entrepreneurial business ownership journey, and I understand that he said, I want to build a $100 million company. Are you in? Did you think either this man, because back in the 90s, that would have been, so that's a lot of money for that period of time. Did you think this man's like a crazy genius, or is he going to ruin my lunch or something? What was your kind of first thought that went through your head when Eric approached you with the idea?
Well, I knew Eric fairly well because we'd worked together for a number of years. So that was just his persona, dream big type of thing. So, and I was pretty naive at that time. So, yeah, I was prepared to believe it. It was a lot of money then. It's a lot of money now. But no, I thought, well, why not? Yeah, and I was working for Telecom at the time, which is now Spark, but it was just, I absolutely hated it working for a corporate. So I would have taken just about anything. So it was a good phone call to get.
Yeah. Your origin story is like me, you grew up in South Auckland, Mangere. I grew up in Papakura. And so you didn't kind of have the business orientation awareness at a young age, I think. Is that correct? So what was your entry into the workforce? What was your original career trajectory?
Oh, I think it probably stems back a bit. So, I was born in Mangere, but my parents were very sort of upwardly mobile. So they were not fancy people at all, but they're very aspirational. So, there was a lot of talk around the dinner table and all that sort of stuff and how to get ahead and how to do business. And my father had quite a few businesses and bought a lot of properties over time. So I always had that sort of, not drilled into me, but just listening. So I think I was brought up with kind of a business type mindset. And then as I got older, my father wanted me to be an accountant, and I'd be the world's worst accountant. So I never saw myself doing that, and I failed fifth form bookkeeping. It just wasn't me at all. But I knew I had to get a job, and so I ended up getting a sales job as my first job. I did go to Waikato University / Teachers College for a while, for 2 and a bit years, but it definitely wasn't for me. And I saw a sales job advertised, so I went into that, and not a particularly outgoing person, so it was quite hard being in sales, being outgoing enough and going meeting new people and telling them a story and hoping to convince them to buy something. It was pretty hard in the beginning, but it was the best thing I ever did, really, because it gives you some confidence and some ability and enables you to do deals.
So I'm guessing that you succeeded ultimately in that role as a salesperson. Did you go through like a corporate development training program to help you develop those skills, or were you interned somewhere, or were you mentored by someone amazing? How did you succeed?
Well, definitely nothing formal. So I went to work for Barry Coleman, who ended up owning the National Business Review, and he had just started in business, so he'd been in business 6 months, and he'd started this newspaper called the Waikato Weekender magazine, and he broadly didn't know what he was doing, but he, because he was just starting out, he'd been a journalist before that, and he was a financial journalist and been writing about other people making money and thought he might like to make some himself. So, what it consisted of, I had this terrible job to begin with, so we had to ring people, look up the Waikato Times and call people who had something for sale in the classified, so it might be a bicycle or something like that. So you'd ring up and go, have you sold that bicycle yet? And the person would have thought, hey, I've got a prospect here. They go, no, I haven't sold it. So, well, I can help you because we can advertise it in our Waikato Weekender magazine for you. And it was quite difficult. People were always pretty pissed off once you went through that spiel. But that was my sort of first just learning on the job. I was into that like day one, really.
Yeah, wow. Were you selling them advertising? Did you have to get them to send
it? You had to get them to pay money.
Right, like
it wasn't very much, a few bucks.
Like $5 or something in a check or something?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, to send them an invoice and all that sort of stuff. So, it was, but it hardens you up, right? And
yeah.
Makes you learn that selling and business in general, you get a lot of rejection.
Yes.
So, and then I remember Barry gave me this sheet of paper, and it was like 16 ways to close the sale, and told me that the top salespeople asked for the order 7 times before they got an order, and all this sort of stuff. So I just believed everything he said and went out and did it, and it sort of proved to be true, really.
Yeah. Yeah, isn't it funny? There's these days there's learning and development is a
Yeah.
really big evolved part of big organisations,
Yeah.
and people have this expectation when they take a job that they're going to get trained and developed and mentored
Yeah.
and coached and sent off to all these things. And you were given a piece of paper with 16 ways to sell.
Yeah.
My first job not my first job, my first foray into management. I was 24, I think I was 25. And I was essentially kind of given a team. I'd been hassling them to, climb the corporate ladder in that business. And their development was my boss walks past my desk and he throws me a copy of the book, The 1 Minute Manager. And he goes, read that. That's how we do things around here. And I read the book and I'm like, no, you don't. So I realised that the old if it's to be, it's up to me kind of adage, which no doubt is something that you picked up along the way as well. So then you progress through the selling ranks. I got this call from Eric Watson down the path. How did he pitch the opportunity to you? What was the kernel of the vision that he had at that stage?
Well, as I said, I was working for Telecom, and part of my job there was managing the dealers. And Eric owned a company called Blue Star, and he was a dealer. So I just called him in that context. I'm your dealer representative. And he says, well, I won't say the exact words, but why are you doing that? You're wasted there. You should come work for me. And I said, I didn't really think of that, but why would I want to do that? He goes, you can have equity in the business, and we're going to make this into a $100 million business, and it's all going to be huge, bigger than Texas. So, yeah. So that was really the pitch. And I was very aspirational, although I didn't know much. I know I wanted more than working at Telecom.
Yeah. Now, Blue Star had a wonderful outcome ultimately, but there were some interesting kind of twists and turns and some challenges that you had to navigate on that journey. What were some of the kind of interesting, unexpected things that you had to deal with as you were building Blue Star as a group?
Well, it was something every day, really, because we grew broadly by acquisition. So we bought, over the time I was there, we bought 56 other companies. So, it was sort of... outbuying companies, integrating those companies, and making sure they ran properly, which was quite difficult to do because it was just a disparate group of people, and you had, people who had their own businesses, wanted to retire or whatever. They came and worked for us for a while they used to being their own bosses, and it was laugh a minute, really, not.
56 acquisitions is a phenomenal amount. You're kind of moving into the territory of private equity there, even beyond that. I had Mike Marr on the show maybe about a year ago, TPG Group, and he's made 15 acquisitions. So his strategy is a roll-up of associated businesses around the security and technology kind of automation space. And so he'd developed a playbook and a bit of a formula. That's not the question that I've got for you, but what things did you learn about either how to or how not to do acquisitions through making 56 of those back in the 1990s? What were some key lessons that you took away from that?
Well, probably the number one lesson was once you bought the business, make sure the people were locked into running it for a while. Because we bought a few. Because everyone tells you, I'll sell you my business, it'll be brilliant, and I'll stay working for you and all that sort of thing. But, we found that not to be true. Once people got the money, they were mentally checked out.
Yeah. Hey, it's Josh. Thanks for listening to the show. When founders talk about the dream exit, they're really talking about freedom. Freedom to choose how to use their time and to decide what comes next. I'm a client of JB Ware in New Zealand, and I know this is what sets them apart. They help entrepreneurs and leaders turn success into significance. A great exit isn't just about the commas in your bank account. It's about what those commas enable you to create. Two Commas is proudly partnered with JB Ware, helping founders by putting their wealth to work for generations.
So that's probably the biggest thing we learned. It cost us a few times. Bought some quite big businesses, and the people just went AWOL, really. They might have been physically there, but just not caring. And so a bit of money retention, and benefits for people to keep on running the business and increase their purchase price or their sell price.
So what scale did you get the business to, Blue Star?
Well, it sort of went in a few stages. So when I joined, the company was doing, I think it's just a couple of million a year in sales. Okay. So it was quite small. We had a pretty high-profile premises up in Upper Queen Street. You could sort of see it from everywhere. Had big signs on it, so it looked sort of bigger than it was. But Yeah, I think it was doing a few million a year in sales, so it wasn't very much. And very ultimately, we got it to $1 billion in sales.
Wow.
So, there's obviously a lot of water under the bridge between that start and the end, and a lot of things that happened. So we got acquired, but we got acquired and had an earn-out. So we sold to a company called US Office Products, and they provided us with cash to really go hard on the acquisitions. So we bought some pretty big businesses near the end. We bought Woodcourse, for instance. I think was the biggest one.
Right. There were some challenges before that acquisition, though. I think that the business was, kind of you ran into some cash issues and some other bits and pieces.
Yeah. Well, on a daily basis, really. we never had enough money because we're just growing so fast.
Yeah.
So even before the US Office Products acquisition, we would have been turning over, well, in the hundreds of millions before that, and we were doing it on no money really. So, every time we'd buy a business, one of the things we'd do, we'd always go to everyone who supplied that business, said, can we have longer terms? Go to the landlord, can we have cheaper rent? You'd be screwing it around every way you possibly could because you knew you didn't really have enough money to run it. So, the money was always a problem, but it sort of came to a head when we got pretty big. And Eric used to disappear from time to time, so I was CEO of the business and he was sort of an executive chairman type role. And he always said, I don't want to work in the business, I want to work on the business. And if, he used to talk to me every day, but he'd always say to me, why are you talking to me about that? You're running the business, I'm not doing that. You do what you think is right, and I'm thinking of the big picture. Anyway, he disappeared and hadn't seen him for about a week. And the phone goes one day and I'm there kind of, worrying about everything every second because we were in a lot of trouble. We're even on credit watch with the BNZ. So we had a guy from BNZ sitting in our office, couldn't sign a check without him.
Wow.
Because I couldn't pay any bills. So it was a pretty heavy situation. And he rang up. I said, where are you? And he said, Palm Springs. I said, what are you doing there? I've been to this office products conference, but everything's all right now. I've sold the company. And he was always full of shit, So I said, so how much did you sell it for? He goes, 100 million. So that's a good deal, well done. And he goes, no, I'm being serious. And he had to sort of convince me that it was a true story. And he goes, you've got to get everything set up. I'm bringing this guy, John Ledecky, down, who's the CEO of US Office Products. I'm bringing him down next week. Get him a helicopter ride over Waiheke, and we're going to take him to the rugby and see John Alomu. And, he says, organise all that, because we haven't got the deal on paper yet, but we're shaking on it. So anyway, it proved to be true. So
that's quite remarkable as a story, $100 million acquisition, based on a conversation at a meeting from a conference.
Yeah, the interesting thing was they did the deal on the golf course. So I think they're both not very good golfers, and they were sort of one of the last pairs playing and got stuck in the dark out on the golf course and started talking about this deal. Yes, how it started.
I love it. Do you know, looking back, what was the motivation for US Office Products? Were they endeavouring to grow into the South Pacific? Was that part of their strategy? Was it more just like, look at me, we're a big multinational now, the whole ego thing for CEOs of big multinationals? Or did the revenue line make sense? If you look at the business textbook kind of thinking behind it.
Well, at that stage, people were doing roll-ups of office products companies. So there's some big players in the US, like US Office Products or Viking, there's a few others. Office Depot, I think, was going at that time. So these guys were just trying to get scale into their business. And there was a lot of competition for those businesses in the US, and they found this business in New Zealand where no one else was trying to buy it. And we'd been doing the same thing in the sort of Pacific area. We'd bought quite a few businesses in Australia as well. So, it was just like a logical connection for them, really.
Right. Yeah, got it. Okay. You mentioned an earn-out. What duration did you have on that? And then when did you kind of get into the next thing?
Well, there was sort of two parts to it. So there was a lockup. So they paid us, and this was another kind of high risk deal because the $100 million was $90 million worth of their shares and $10 million in cash. And that's always a risky deal because you don't have really any ability to do DD on their company, so you kind of just hope it's a good deal. And we were locked up for 6 months, so couldn't sell those shares. And so it was a 6 months where you sort of worry, are they going to go broke or something? But the opposite happened, and they did really, really well in that 6 months, and the share price kept going up. So when we got to sell, that was actually worth $200 million because the shares had doubled in value in that 6 months. So
remarkable.
It was a solid piece of good luck, but yeah, it was really good. And so at that time, when I got to sell my shares, I just bailed because I was sort of happy to go. And Eric and I weren't always getting on that well, and I thought, well, I don't need to put myself through this anymore. Get on fine now, I'd have to say, when I last talked to him, which was a few years ago. But then it was, we're butting heads a bit, so I just thought, well, I want to go. And I said to him, do you care if I go? And he said, no. So I went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Eric ran into a bit of trouble with legislation and tax, I think, along the way. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, he's a guy who pushes the envelope a lot.
Yeah.
So
went to prison or got a criminal charge, I think?
he did. He ended up going to jail in London. Yeah, not for any of that. He was in court over something, and he said something that wasn't the truth in court, so he got jailed for contempt of court.
Oh, wow. Okay, remarkable. So then the next thing that you got involved in was you met Jeff Ross, and he was on the build of the 42 Below brand. Is that correct?
Yeah, wasn't quite in that order. So we started a few businesses, myself and a business partner. So we started a little business selling FPOS machines called Netco, and did okay out of that. And then we got into the electricity sector, which was deregulated at that time, and became an electricity retailer, and grew that business. And it was while we were in the middle of that business, really, I met Jeff.
Okay.
And Jeff had started making vodka in his garage.
Yeah.
And well, it wasn't a commercial enterprise at all. It was just an idea. And I think he was maybe making 500 cases a year, so 500 a dozen.
Right.
So
very, very boutique.
Yeah, it was extremely boutique. Yeah. So yeah, he was doing that, and we just got introduced by a mutual acquaintance, and I just sort of liked it because I thought it was really interesting, because who thinks of New Zealand in terms of spirits? You're thinking beer or wine or something like that. But in those days, people didn't drink spirits here or cocktails very much. You didn't go to the top shelf too often. But there was this massive cocktail culture in the US and other parts of the world. So anyway, Jeff had a pretty good story and pretty good credentials as an advertising guy. And, we just thought, hell, it's got some really big potential scale. The world market is massive in vodka, tequila, gin, those sort of white spirits. Mm. Yeah, so one thing led to another, and we thought, what the hell? Well, we'll invest in it and see if we can make it big.
Yeah. I'll come back to that story in a second because the growth bit is interesting, but you mentioned that you had Netco and Empower along the way in between those ventures. Do you see yourself as more of an entrepreneur, a founder who sees a problem, gathers a group of people around, casts a vision, and then builds a company around it? Or do you see yourself more as the person who's behind the entrepreneur, so the executor, investor kind of person, or are you flexible depending on the situation?
Oh, I'd say flexible. I mean, I really think where I've added value is just thinking about things in the right way. So recognising there's an opportunity, where other people might not see it.
Right.
I mean, I don't think I'm a very good manager of a company. I'm pretty poor at that because I'm sort of disorganised and overly optimistic. So I'll just sort of have a crack at anything.
Yeah.
And I need people to restrain me on those things.
Mm-hmm. Have you reflected upon what it is about your competency, whether there's a superpower that's there or whether you have a formula or something which enables you to do that opportunity spotting that others don't? Is there an approach that you have to thinking around it?
Well, I suppose you'd always look at things that have potential scale in them. So I suppose that was the main driver for me, just how can you make it big? Because we're in New Zealand, which is a small country, and, there are big sectors here like the electricity sector, but, generally you have to be thinking about export, selling overseas. So, yeah, I'd have to say of all the businesses I've done, I haven't really enjoyed any of them that much. I haven't loved it. I've sort of done it, as a means to an end type of thing.
Fund the Ferrari habit.
Yeah, well, I started off with a much cheaper car habit. My first car was a Cortina. But, yeah, I've always loved cars and, I like real estate, housing, that sort of stuff too, so to fund that. But I never really enjoyed it that much until I got to Turners, actually, which I'm doing now. I love working at Turners. Yeah.
Is that because there's a direct connection to the automotive industry?
Yeah, I think it's that. And there's other parts in there like finance, which I really enjoy the finance industry. Mm-hmm. I've sort of indirectly been part of that for most of my business life. I used to work for General Finance, one of my early jobs.
Okay.
And then when I worked for Xerox, we had a finance company there, so a lot of that business was on finance. In Blue Star, we started company called Blue Star Finance, and we grew that to quite a big finance book.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always been kind of in and around that, and I do enjoy that business. And so Turners kind of a mix really of financial services and selling cars. So
Yeah.
that's what I enjoy doing.
I want to pick that up properly, but just to close out the Netco and the Empower story, this is a show about exits. So you've exited both of those companies now. Which is the more interesting story that you'd like to share about how that journey came about? And I'll preface that. So a lot of the audience that I have is around half of them are company owners, and for a lot of them, they feel in the position of being a little bit trapped by the asset. And I talk about it in the book. Often it's because they haven't systemized the company properly, they haven't taken out the succession risk from them, so the company's reliant upon them, and a few other reasons as well. And so the vision of an exit is one that is a struggle for people to be able to see their way into sometimes, and yet you've got this kind of detachment from companies, which I wonder if that's one of the things that enables you to be objective about it and see it as an asset. But that's a statement rather than, I'm going to pose it as a question in a second. But talk me through the exit of one of those ventures, how it came about, who the acquirer was, why they bought it, as much as you'd like to share.
Well, I think the theory is you build an asset that someone else wants or would want. So we always think about that. Not that we think, I'm going to build this business, I'm going to sell it on, but where does the value get created? And the value gets created in the desire of someone else to own that type of business. So the story I share with you on that one is the Empower business. So we used to buy all our wholesale electricity from Contact Energy, and we always thought they're the logical buyer for us. And if we sell lots, they'll kind of have to buy us.
Right.
And if they have to buy us, they'll pay us a good price type of thing. So, we built it so we didn't have to sell it. We could hang on. We had very good watertight contracts with them. But the way we did it is, in those days, a retail customer was worth a lot of money. So they were selling for, I think, between $1,000 and $1,400 each for a retail customer. So if you're someone like Contact or you're a generator, you've got all this plant and equipment and dams and what have you, and you need to sell it to someone, and you've got all the costs associated with that, whether you're selling it or not. So we thought, well, our goal has got to be just to get as many customers as we can, as quickly as we can, and someone else is going to really want to own that. And logically it would be Contact because we're buying that power from them. So we put on 100 sales reps. So we went, really hard at it. And it was kind of like a land grab because we were the first in that game. There's lots of people in it now. But we thought, well, we'll just take the lion's share of it. We'll take as much as we can, and someone's going to be interested in us. And we sort of became the tail wagging the dog there, really. We were just selling so much. Like at that time, we were selling, I think it was about 10% of all our electricity in New Zealand.
Wow.
And we had 150,000 customers. So it was a big business.
Yeah.
And it just got to the point where Contact thought, well, we got to nip this in the bud somewhere.
Yes.
We need to own this business. So so the point of that is you always try and set it up that it's going to be desirable to someone else. So in a sector where you're building market share and you're building brand value, something that someone else is going to want at the end of it. And I think that can apply to any business, but you've just got to position it that way.
The other thing which sits in behind it is the timing aspect. So when the industry was deregulated, you saw the opportunity because new players could come in and essentially sell someone else's product, which hadn't been the case prior to that.
That's correct.
And then land grab was the word that you used, but that was essentially a structured sales play around building rapidly a sales organisation with sales capability. And we've talked about this off air, but you offered me a job when I returned from London in 1999 or the end of 1998, somewhere in that sort of region. I was dead keen to get into technology because I'd seen the Y2K thing that had been playing out. And the recruiter that I was dealing with said, you need to go and meet this guy, Grant. And you offered me a job. And the question that you asked me was, so what's the most amount of money you've ever made? You were trying to calibrate, was I a high performer? Was I a low performer in that kind of capacity? But that may have been the path that I didn't go on, was to work alongside you at that stage of my life. But you sold the business to Contact, which was the state-owned generator, who was then endeavouring to kind of get the retail and the customer ownership back inside their business. Is that right?
They were privatised at that stage, so they were one of the ones that was completely spun off from the government.
Right.
Yeah, so they were a private company, still are listed on the stock exchange. I don't think there's any government ownership there.
Right. Yeah, got it. Okay. So exited that business. You were involved with Jeff around about that stage as well,
Yeah.
Jeff Ross. So I remember reading his book, and it was the growth of the company, and Adman is what you'd said, and he was a great storyteller and really good with brand and visuals and that sort of stuff. And I remember him talking about the guerrilla sales tactics that they employed, which was how they'd go drop into a market, say New York, and they'd have some friends of the company or some employees that would go into bars, and for about 3 days before the sales rep called, asked if they had any 42 below vodka. Do you have any 42 below vodka? And after 3 days, people would turn up and then kind of offer to sell the 42 below vodka, which I thought was just a wonderfully clever guerrilla tactic without a lot of budget, right?
Yeah.
Smart way to get into a market. Were there any other things, any other tactics that you recall from those days of growing the business? You obviously weren't operational, but were there any other things that were done that you kind of look back upon and go, that was a really smart thing, or that was a really risky thing that we did?
Oh, yeah, everything was risky, really. Just some of them turned out to be smart and some not. And some things worked well by accident, really. But probably the best thing that we did was viral marketing. So this was in the days before social media or YouTube or any of that sort of stuff. But we had a very clever advertising guy called Daryl Parsons, who, funnily enough, we still use. He does the Tina from Turners ads for us.
Huh.
Yeah. So, but anyway, that was many years ago.
A quick one while I've got you. You've probably listened to every business podcast going, this one obviously included. And the biggest calls in your business still feel super hard and are yours to make alone. Talking to founders in exactly the spot, what I've worked out is that more content just won't fix this problem. What you need is frameworks that work in a room of people going through the same journey. That's the Comma Club. There's 50 founding places, and when they're gone, the founding rate goes up with them. Please head to joshcomrie.com to learn more.
And he used to make up these little MPEGs, and they were just sort of politically incorrect, funny MPEGs. And he'd do one, and you just send it to someone you knew, and they'd send it to 20 people who'd send it to 20 people. And we had some way of tracking this. I can't remember how, but you do one of these things, and they'd go to 100,000 people. And we obviously should have invented YouTube at that time. We're onto something we didn't realise. But, it was just incredibly successful for us, and everyone thought they were just so funny. And it was probably at the period of, when wokeness sort of started to be a thing, and a lot of people didn't embrace that, and to see these politically incorrect things. So we just took the piss out of everyone. And, these days, you'd be hung, drawn, and quartered for it. But, it was gays, it was Asians, it was, you name it. Nothing was sacred.
Oh, the pink dollar ads? I remember those.
Dollar, yeah. I mean, funnily enough, you think you're taking a risk, but, the gay community loved those ads.
Yeah.
It was, give us your mighty pink dollar. Thanks for reminding me of that. It was quite funny.
It was a great ad.
Yeah, but there was just a bunch of them like that. And I'd say 90% of people thought they were more than that, thought they were funny, but, you had some people who really took offence. There was one of the very first ones we did was, I always remember the start of it. It's every day or every morning the Maori people of New Zealand wake up, cook some eggs and sail down the Shotover River in the America's Cup boat. And I remember Howard Morrison, who's since passed away, but he got very offended by that for some reason, and made a big song and dance about it because he thought it was degrading the people or something. I'm not really sure what his point was, but the great thing was we were the upstarts and we had no credibility, and he was the respectable guy, right? So he got interviewed on TV1 News, and they played this whole thing on TV1 News, and look how terrible this is, and it was just brilliant for us.
Just total gold.
Yeah, it was total gold. Yeah, so I think that these days there's heaps of people trying to do that sort of thing, this sort of stunt type marketing, but in those days no one was doing it. We were the first.
Yes,
and. It did. I'd say that's the single biggest thing that got us recognition. And we were selling at a high price point. Jeff used to call it masstige, so, mass market prestige product.
Yep.
So your marketing was kind of down and dirty, but your product was very high quality and looked really good and really high fashion.
Yeah. And phenomenal product, like gross margin on vodka, I understand as well. Like it's $1 a bottle to make kind of thing, and then you can sell it for retail for $40, $50 kind of thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of excise tax and that sort of thing in there. I think your back of bottles analogy is probably pretty right. Maybe $1 or $2 in those days.
Yeah.
But we would have spent $4.
Right.
So we got a nicer bottle and we, filtered it a few more times to make the product good, and distilled it multiple times. So I think the product was pretty good. We won a lot of competitions with it and packaged it well and made it look nice. And then you had this kind of marketing machine behind it that made people want it.
Yeah. The company was listed, which has been a regular recurring theme for your businesses. These days, it has nowhere near as much appeal or kind of currency as it has done historically. And I remember Jeff famously, and I'm curious as to whether you can recall the metrics of what the number was at, the revenue number versus the sale number. But on the website, the 42 Below website, after the acquisition by the Bacardi Group, I think I've got that right.
Yeah.
We're fucking rich was on the homepage of the website, which is just absolute gold. Again, that poking fun at a whole bunch of different things. You mentioned poking fun at others. You also poke fun at yourselves as a business as well, which was a very, it's like anything's fair game, including us.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Nothing was sacred.
Yes.
No.
100 million USD, I think around about 165 was the number that I think we dug up. Do you remember what the revenue number was?
It was about 20 million.
Yeah, wow. I mean, that's a technology multiple in a consumer product space. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, it was, but Bacardi had a worldwide distribution network, so it basically cost them nothing to sell the product. So it was like, here's $20 million revenue, you plug it into your machine, it can be hundreds of millions of dollars revenue. And I remember the thing they told us at the time, or after the deal is done, there's a guy called Atul Vora who did the deal, and I had lunch with him afterwards, and I said, why did you do this? And I remember he said at the time, he said, we started a dark rum brand in Spain, so Bacardi's white rum. And he said, because dark rum's a big drink in Spain. And he said, we spent $100 million doing it and it failed. And he said, well, when we saw this for $100 million, it looked cheap.
Huh. Because you've already succeeded and the trend on the sales had been increasing year on year on year. Yeah. And so, that's a good story. You were in your first chemotherapy session when the sale was announced. What was that experience like for you? Was the sale kind of a bit of a thing in the background noise? Because, if we have no health, there is no wealth other than health kind of thing.
No, well, it wasn't in the background. It was in the foreground amongst other things. But, the first day we met with Bacardi was the day I had my first chemotherapy session. So I'd had surgery. I'd had bowel cancer. I had surgery for it, I think, 6 weeks before. And then... the day of my first chemo was the day we met Bacardi. So I was reasonably involved in it in the beginning, but as time went on, I got less involved. The whole thing took about 6 months to do, because we negotiated with Bacardi. They went away for a while and said, no, we won't be back because you're being unreasonable, but they did come back, obviously. And, by the time the last meeting happened, I was no good. So couldn't, trying to stay alive more than anything. So I didn't go to the very last meeting.
Some people say that they have quite a profound transformation when they face a major illness. Is that something that happened for you, or was it kind of just fight this thing and then move on to the next interesting business challenge?
I don't know about a transformation, because I don't think I'd sort of do anything different, but you realise your mortality and, you realise there's some problems that you can't solve. So, in business, people talk about pivoting these days, but you're pivoting all the time because you're trying something that's not working, so you try something else. But with this, it was kind of like, you go to the doctor and go through the process and have the surgery, and they give you odds. So they go, there was a drug that was funded in New Zealand, and they said, if you take this drug 50-50, you'll live or die. You think, well, it's pretty heavy, isn't it? So say, well, how can I help that? And they go, well, there's this other drug that'll cost you $100,000, but it's not funded, but you can buy that, and that's 70% in your favour then, 70-30. And then I'll do that. So I had 2 chemo regimes at once, which is not very pleasant to go through. So it's terrible to go through. And then went to osteopaths and you name it, dietitians, everything you could do just to give myself kind of the best odds. But that's the hard realisation that you might not beat it, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's just, you do as much as you can, but it is what it is. And on the other story I'll share with you, my father died of bowel cancer, and he was still alive at that time, but kind of in the last throes of it. So
Wow.
he died 3 weeks after I got diagnosed, and I saw, the result right in front of me. And he didn't try. He did one chemotherapy session, go, I didn't like that, so I'm not going to do it anymore. And I thought, well, that's not going to be me. I'm going to try absolutely everything.
And your wife had cancer around about the same time as
No,
well?
no,
is it?
no. She's much healthier than me, you know.
Right, okay.
She's been bulletproof so far.
Okay, okay, good.
But she was very supportive, I have to say.
Right,
She came to
yeah.
every chemo session with me. And you're not thinking that straight when it's happening, so you kind of need someone to help you out for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Now, the story our researcher dug up is that you rang the CEO of Turners and they wouldn't return your calls, and so you decided to buy the company. It's probably a little bit of an urban myth, but there's always truth to urban myths. But tell us how you got involved in Turners.
Well, it's 100% true, actually.
Right.
So at Dorchester, as our company was then, it was a finance business, and our main thing we did was finance cars. So we thought, well, if we sign Turners up, because they sell a lot of cars, we'll get a lot more business. So we had a rep go in there, and no luck. And so we're at a board meeting, and I said, look, I'll ring that guy because I'm a chairman, some big deal, he'll talk to me. And anyway, I rang him and he wouldn't talk to me. And I thought, bloody hell, I don't remember the guy's name actually. But so at the next board meeting, they said, how did that go? Because in our board meetings, we have an action points thing, so you've got to do your action points. And I said, well, I tried to ring him and it didn't work. And I said, we should buy that company and sack that guy, just like a throwaway line. But everyone kind of leant forward in their chairs and go, do you think we could do that? Not sack the guy, but buy the company. And, we started talking about it because we were a minnow at that time. And, one thing led to another. And, we were much smaller than Turners, but we bought them. So
How?
lots of bank finance and capital raise and the very first part of it, we wanted to get a stake in it to have a look.
They were listed, is that right?
They were listed, yeah,
Yep.
they're a listed company. And there's two big shareholders in there, and one of them was Milford Asset Management. So I knew Brian Gaynor. So I went and saw him and said, you wouldn't be interested in selling that 20% share you've got, would you? And he goes, well, funny you should mention it, because he said it's a sleepy company. He said it really needs some input. And he was on the board at the time, and he said, I thought we could buy this 20% and turn it around. He said, I've since discovered I can't, and you might be a better person to do that. So, we'll sell you our shares. So, so we bought that 20%. We got one of our guys, Paul Burns, on the board, and, had a look from the inside, and it was obviously a good company, but sleepy. And, so we bought it. We paid, I think, around 70 million for it when our market cap was maybe 20. So it was, sprat swallowing the mackerel type of thing. But
Yeah, wow. 70 million for the 20%?
No,
That was the valuation of the
70
company.
million for the whole lot we paid.
Yep, okay. And did you end up buying the whole company in totality, or is that the stake that you retain today?
No, we bought 100% of it.
Right.
Yeah, so we bought the 20%, and then sometime later, maybe a year or 18 months later, we bought the rest of it. So mounted full takeover.
Now, you used the word a sleepy company.
Yeah.
What I would make that mean is that it's a bit vague on its strategy, perhaps missing its numbers, doesn't have a compelling position in its market. Have I missed anything, or was it something quite different, and what did you do to turn it around?
Well, for instance, its board had all independent directors, so there was no one with any skin in the game there.
Right.
So, it's like Turners. We've got probably a third of the company is owned by people on the board. So, we're pretty focused on how well it works. And there they had all independent directors, and some of them quite old, and not being ageist, but probably, maybe shouldn't have been there anymore. And plus they had pretty old strategy. So they were an auction house, and you had the advent of Trade Me and all these sort of things and online sales. So they needed to evolve, and they weren't evolving because, the size of the business now, had a market cap of 70 million of that, or less than that, 60 million I think at that time, because we had to pay a premium. Now our market cap's like over $800 million, homing in on $1 billion market cap. And we saw the opportunity. So there's a couple of good guys there at the time. There was Todd Hunter and Aaron Saunders, who are still there today. So they're CEO and CFO. And they had the vision of taking it from an auction house into being an actual car dealer. So we had access to lots of vehicles, And when you're an auction house, you get a small percentage on them. And they figured if we bought the cars instead of sell them on behalf of other people, we could make a decent margin.
Right.
And we could grow the business based on that. So I think at that time, Turners maybe had 3 or 4 branches. I can't actually remember, but not many. It was a big one out in Penrose here in Auckland, one in the Waikato, one in Christchurch. But they were kind of almost like a big box retail type of thing, big auction houses, and used to sell Japanese import vehicles. So we embraced this idea of making it a car dealer and growing it. And it didn't have a finance arm in those days, so just financed through third parties, which was what we were originally talking about them. So, we've just grown it since that time and increased our footprint. So I think we've got 38 locations now, so all over the country.
Largest nationwide car dealer?
Oh, by far. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've got about, I think, 8 or 9% market share now.
Amazing.
Of the used car market.
Yeah. It's a beautiful segue opportunity for us to start talking about cars proper.
Sure.
So you've, I think, now got the second largest Ferrari collection in the country.
Yeah, might be third, second or third. I used to be the biggest by far. Once again, I was sort of into it when, I don't know, people weren't that interested.
Yeah.
So it used to be when I started. So I bought my first Ferrari in 1999, and it was a 550 Maranello, and it had been sitting on the showroom floor for like nearly a year.
Huh.
No one wanted them in those days. And it's when we sold Empower, I had some money burning a hole in my pocket, so I went and bought this car.
Do you remember how much it was?
Yeah, I remember exactly because it was 550,000, and it was a 550 Maranello.
Wow. Okay.
Can't forget that number. I generally got quite a good memory for numbers anyway. But yeah, so I bought that car. And everyone I knew said, "You got rocks in your head," because you could buy a decent house for 550 grand in those days. I said, "Oh well, that's what I wanted to do." And then I bought a few more, but it was just easy. You just buy them off the floor, and they were trying hard to sell them to you. And these days, they've got to be loving you before you can buy a car, especially if you want something special. You've got to be on the special list and all that sort of stuff. So I think I was the original. About a few people have sort of followed me on it. And there's a couple of good collections here. I mean, one's okay, but still pretty good actually. It's better than okay. But so there's a few people who've got better.
Have you only bought, in terms of the ultra luxury, supercar marques? Have you only bought Ferraris, or have you dabbled in Lamborghinis or anything else?
Well, I've got a Lamborghini at the moment. I've got a Lamborghini Urus.
Okay.
It was my everyday car.
Yep.
So I've had a few of those, and I really like them. I had a Lamborghini Murcielago when they first came out.
Yep.
Which actually I sort of wish I still had that. It was a pretty cool car. But yeah, the person that bought it off me wrote it off, so I'm never going to have that car again. In terms of, I've had a lot of Porsches.
Yep.
I went through a pretty big Porsche phase and used to race Porsches.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I still like Porsche, but I like Ferrari better.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Why Ferrari? I mean, there's this hallowed story around the marque now. I think they're the longest competing in the Formula One as well, and we'll come to the racing journey in a minute. But they've managed to build themselves into this ultra luxury premium space with wait lists, and you've got to court us as a customer rather than the other way around. And I understand their business model is that they sell a variety of standard vehicles, but then they've got these ultra exclusive, 1 of 10 kind of things, and they have massive margins on them. It's a really interesting kind of study in how to grow quite a unique business. But what are the things for you that kind of make them as special as they are?
Well, it's probably none of those things. It's just I like to drive them and I like the look of them, but it's quite a different drive to anything else. So I guess to a person inexperienced in driving these sort of cars, you can drive a Lamborghini or a McLaren or something, and you'd say, well, or a Pagani, or there's lots of cars in that sector, and say, well, it's all sort of the same. But Ferrari do have a uniqueness in the way they drive, and I'm sorry, talking petrol head stuff here, but something like a Porsche is very understeery, so you can drive a Porsche fast quite safely, because you go too hot into a corner, it'll push through the corner and kind of save you a bit. Whereas the Ferraris are very, they'll turn in anywhere, you just turn into a corner at any speed, but the price you pay is the back hangs out, on the exit of the corner.
Yeah.
So it's kind of got that I want to kill you vibe to it. And which strangely attractive. So, yeah, I just like that type of drive, and I particularly like the V12s. You know, so you have big engine, high revs, sounds like the old Formula One cars, and nothing else quite has that either. So, yeah, I've test driven a few Porsches. In fact, I'm going to drive some around Hampton Downs tomorrow. But I just get back in them and think, I don't like it as much. You know, I like it, but I'd rather spend the money on a Ferrari.
Yeah, fair enough. It may be the Murcielago, but is there any car that you've regretted selling?
Oh, heaps.
Right.
Yeah.
You've had 49, I think. Is that right, over time, Ferraris?
I've actually had 50 now. So I've got my 50th car, and I've got 2 on the way. So I'll be up to 52 shortly. Yeah, like I had all the Ferrari Halo cars. So once again, way back, I think in 2011, I bought an F40.
Wow.
And I've had all their Halo cars. So I've had 288 GTO, F40, F50, Enzo, LaFerrari Aperta. I've had them all, and I've got none of them now. So I regret selling all those.
Yes.
But
they've appreciated massively, haven't they?
yeah, well, they appreciated while I had them too, but yeah, I couldn't really afford one now if I had to go back and buy one.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, they're just so much money. Like, yeah, it's gone absolutely crazy. But the reason I sold them was to be able to buy the next new one. And,
Right.
You know, you can't go on indefinitely buying and not selling something.
Yeah, indeed. So that love of vehicles has been around for you for a long time, but you've also had a deep interest in motorsports.
Yep.
And you're now kind of quite involved with Liam Lawson, or you have been for all of his career, I understand.
Yeah, most of it. Not when he was a karter and that sort of stuff, but since he's been driving cars, yes.
Yeah. How did you get involved, and what was the appeal?
Well, I've always loved Formula One and motor racing and cars, like since I was a toddler, you know, ever since I can remember, basically. And back in the day, there was quite a few New Zealanders in Formula One. You had Bruce McLaren, Denny Hulme, Chris Amon in Formula One. And I used to listen to it on the radio, and I used to buy Automobile, which is the sort of Formula One album, every year, and be into that. So I used to save up all my pocket money and Christmas money and things to buy that book. So I always just loved it. And did a bit of racing myself. But I got approached by a guy called Graham McDonald. He used to own a magazine called Speed Sport down in the South Island.
Okay.
And he had spotted Liam from an early age, and like when he was in karting, and he used to run a scholarship for Formula Vs, which is a sort of entry-level single-seater car. Anyway, he paid for Liam to go in these Vs, and he'd done quite well. And so then he helped him raise some money to get into Formula Fords. And he won the Formula Ford Championship in New Zealand, and he was the youngest winner in the world of Formula Ford ever. So he won it at 15, I think, and maybe even 14. I can't remember. He was pretty young anyway. And he won 15 out of the 16 races. He just didn't win the last one, I think, which was a shame. And the only reason he didn't win it is in Formula Ford you have to slipstream. Right. And so you want to be second going into the last lap so you can slipstream down the straight and get past.
Oh, wow.
And he thought there was one lap to go, so he was positioning himself for the pass, but it had finished. So, yeah, otherwise he would have won all the races. But anyway, I met him just directly after that. That would have been in, like January, and I met him probably a month after that. And Graham McDonald, he just came to see me without Liam and said, look, I know you've helped out a few racing drivers, have over the years. And he said, would you be interested in helping Liam? And Donna, my wife, and I sort of said, we're never going to do that anymore because, you know, you just put this money into this stuff and it's just a money pit and you always put more than you want to and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, so I told him that, and he said, oh, well, would you like to meet him? And I said, oh, sure, you know, I'd like to meet him. So anyway, he came into the office, and it was when I was at Trilogy, so he came into our Trilogy offices, and he was just a great kid, you know, great personality and stuff, and you just sort of warmed to him automatically. And I said, well, what do you want? And he said, well, I've got this chance to drive Formula 4 in Australia, which is cars with wings and slicks. So just a little entree, it's sort of the first step towards Formula 1. And he said, someone's given me a free drive because I won the Formula 4 Championship, but I can't afford the airfares. And it was like to send him over and stay in a hotel and come back, it was $4,000, I think. Right. So, okay, what the hell, we'll do $4,000. So he went over there, and he didn't even do the whole season. He did some of the races because he'd got in late for a lack of money, and he came second in the championship. Huh. Yeah, and so I thought, okay, we've got something here. And then based on that, he got a little bit of notoriety, a little bit of fame, and so I sort of ended up in a bit of a role of sort of helping him with money, and I'm sort of still in that role today, really, informally. But yeah, I help him with all his financial stuff and where to put his money and all that sort of thing, pay his bills for him, and all that sort of stuff. But at that stage, there was an opportunity to do Toyota Racing Series here, which is single-seater cars. They're kind of like slightly less than a Formula 3 car, but similar. And all the drivers come down from Europe because it's in our summer, their winter, so it's a good place for the up-and-coming drivers to come and train. So we thought, I wonder if we could get you into that. It cost $250,000 to do it. So anyway, I managed to influence Turners, strangely enough, to put some money into it. And we got a few other companies, so Giltrap Group, Porter Group out of Hamilton, a few people to put some money in, and we managed to raise enough money for him to get into the TRS series, and he was a rookie, and no one expected anything of him, but he won that series.
Wow.
And he did a very famous pass. It's like in motor racing folklore now, because it was down at Highlands, and it was raining, and there's another Kiwi kid who was very good at that time, Marcus Armstrong, and he was sort of expected to win it, and he's now an IndyCar driver, so obviously was very good, and he was part of the Ferrari Academy at the time, the Ferrari Formula One Academy. So wet race, and Liam went round the outside of him on a place you don't pass, and everyone's just holding their breath thinking you're going to be in the wall, but somehow he wasn't, and he made the pass and won the race and ended up winning the championship. And Graham McDonald, who was managing Liam at that time, the phone rang, and it was a guy on the phone and said, "Oh, it's Helmut Marko here, I want to talk to you about Liam." And Helmut Marko at that time, until quite recently, was the young driver boss at Red Bull, so he was the guy that got drivers in the Red Bull Academy. And Grant said, "Yeah, we're going to pull the other one, who is this really?" And he goes, "No, it's Helmut Marko here." And so Grant said, "Well, okay, what do you want?" And he goes, "I want Liam in our Formula One Academy." And Grant said, "Well, how does that work?" And he said, "Well, we send you a contract and you sign it, send it back to us, and he's in." So I said, "Okay, send us the contract." And we actually didn't tell, the series hadn't quite finished, the TRS series, so we didn't tell Liam for 3 weeks, which he was really pissed off about, still pissed off to this day. But we just wanted him to concentrate on the racing and not be thinking of the future. So so that's what happened. So we ended up signing that contract. And, he's ended up in Formula One. A lot of trials and tribulations in between.
Yeah, no doubt. So you were a fan of Formula One. You'd followed it as through a kid into being an adult. I'm guessing that meant that you probably weren't too exposed to the business side of Formula One until Liam got in there. What were one or two of the biggest surprises for you about how that side of things worked?
Well, it was sort of weird because you hold it in such high esteem that you never even think you'll be talking to people like Helmut Marko. You just, and you get into that rarefied air there, and you meet Christian Horner, and I've met Fred Vasseur and a few of the other team principals over time, and you for a while you're overawed, you don't believe you're there. You get used to it over time, because I've been to a lot of races now and talked to a lot of these guys, but I was just so overawed, I probably didn't do a very good job of it in the beginning, because the first time I met Helmut Marko I was at a race with Liam, a Formula 2 race, and I was at the race, and I wasn't expecting to meet him or anything, I was just there with Liam, but my phone goes, and it was his PA, and she says, "Helmut would like to meet you, can you come in and meet him at such and such a time?" So I think, oh hell, I'm so nervous, to meet this guy.
Like an interview.
Well, it was, but I went to meet him, and he's just the grumpiest guy in the world, He's just rude and grumpy. So I shake his hand, say hello, and he goes, "Liam has to pick up his ideas. If he doesn't win today, we're going to fire him. He's going to be out of the program. I just want you to tell him that." And that was the end of interview,
Wow.
So, hell, that didn't go very well. So I went back and talked to Liam about it. He said, "Oh, he's always like that, He said it to me lots of times, but he hasn't fired me yet." But anyway, we decided he'd better have a decent race, and I think he got on the podium that weekend. So, but you get more used to it over time, and, you get to know these people a bit, and you realise they're just people and they got a job to do. But, the stakes of the whole thing are massive. I mean, there's so many young guys who want to get in there as drivers, but just the business of the thing, I mean, it's a couple of $100 million US to win the Formula One championship. The engineering, the technology is just amazing in that area.
Yeah.
And to see it firsthand is fantastic. I get on the headphones pretty often now and get to hear the talk back to the drivers and what's going on. It's very cool.
Yeah. It's becoming, I think, the biggest sport in the world behind football. I think it's like football and then Formula One now. Something in that sort of region. Yeah. How do the economics of it work? So you fund a driver. Do you like get a share in the driver or something? Or can I ask about that?
Yeah. So what we did in Liam's case, there's a group of us. So there was me, Grant McDonald, and a lawyer from Tauranga, John Gordon, and we set up a limited partnership to raise money on behalf of Liam. And there was a kind of deal where you could either donate money into that, or you could invest in him and get a return on that investment if he made it to Formula One. So we did a deal like that and helped fund him, and we raised a lot of money. I think it was $7 or $8 million we raised for him.
Wow.
Yeah, and Red Bull I would have put more than that into him. So I'd say in New Zealand dollars probably $20 million went into him, something like that.
Wow.
And today it would cost a lot more. I would say maybe double that now. The money to get someone to Formula One is massive because you've got to get a super license. To get a super license, you've got to race in Formula 4, 3, 2, maybe a couple of seasons in some of those series, and it's just so expensive to do. And you've got to live in Europe and travel all the time. You don't get any money for anything; you just pay. I think to even drive in Formula 2 now, teams charging €2 or €3 million just for the drive, and you damage the car, you've got to pay, and so on.
Wow. Having watched that Drive to Survive, you see that some of the drivers are kids of the team principals or owners, and you're kind of like, that's how they got their kind of start. Obviously, they've got the skill to compete at that level, but that's not what everyone has as a backstory, right?
No. You do see guys, someone like Lance Stroll, but I still think he deserves plenty of credit because a lot of people go, Stroll, he's only there because his dad and he's useless and all this sort of thing. But I mean, you've got to be good to drive there. I did actually drive it. I drove an Indy car once, and which is not a Formula One car, and it was so bloody hard to drive and so physical. You just realise how good you're not when you drive something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and these guys are just so good. And, but Liam didn't have that family money. I think his family, sacrificed, their financial future for Liam. They poured money into me because even go-karting now, if you want a go-kart in New Zealand now, it's probably 150, 200 grand a year at a decent level. Yeah, it's just everything's so expensive. So, a lot of people made a lot of sacrifices and it required a lot of money. But we had the sort of perfect storm with Liam. The sort of financial times were kind of okay then, so people had money. He was very good. He had a good personality, which helps a lot because you wheel him in front of a customer. He's not looking at his shoes and mumbling at them and stuff. So so it's been an interesting journey for sure.
And he was Red Bull primary team, and then he went back to Toro Rosso. Have I got that correct?
It's called Racing Bulls these days. It used to be called Toro Rosso.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How's he getting on?
Well, he's going very well. He's coming 10th in the championship. And
amazing.
If he gets another 3 points on Pierre Gasly, he'll be coming 9th in the championship. So, he's doing really well. He's had a really good year. He scored points in the last, I think, 5 or 6 races in a row.
Remarkable.
Yeah. No, it's very good. And he is driving really well. And I think he's in a sort of happy place mentally too. He had all those trials and tribulations with going to the main team and then drop back again. But I think he's through that.
So you've had a book. You've been on a bit of a book promotion kind of round recent times. You've decided to get a book out. What's the thrust of the book? What's the orientation of it?
I was kind of a mix of business and cars. So basically what we were talking about earlier, doing business to fund my car habit.
Yes.
That's pretty much what it's about.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what was some of the key learnings that you've had through the journey of having a book written? Did you write yourself, or did you have a ghostwriter help out?
No, I had a ghostwriter.
Yeah.
And it was, my major learning is how much you forget, because I kind of compartmentalise things. So I'll just sort of, that's finished, so I'm on to the next thing, and I don't think about it too much. But so a lot of the reasons I remember the stories I'm telling you today is through the book, because Christina, my ghostwriter, she was very good at kind of teasing things out and, probing deeply into things. And, getting those stories out.
It's not a very New Zealand thing to do, to write a book about yourself, and to write about the journey as it relates to this. Was there like a hump that you had to get over yourself personally? Because I love the notion of it. I mean, the first book is not about myself, but that's not to say that I won't at some stage in the future. Did you have to get over a hump to be able to get to that stage of comfort with it? Because you're not an egotistical guy, right? So.
You sort of do. I mean, I started off being like super shy, like I said before, in sales and that sort of thing. But over time, you just sort of get more confident. And, I talked to a lot of people before I did it, and a lot of people said, don't do it. But I thought, well, what the hell, what's the worst thing that can happen is people don't buy it.
Right.
But, people have bought it.
Yes. Do you know why people said to you to not do it? Was it the whole Kiwi don't put yourself out there thing?
I think totally that, yeah. Yeah, because it's weird. You have a lot of recognition about that because of it. Because I don't know if it's like being a celebrity, but it's fractionally like that. You just have strangers coming up to you and going to buy my lunch or something, and someone will come up, I read your book and I really loved it and I feel so inspired, and, that sort of stuff, which is, it makes you feel good about it.
Yeah. I presume it was a mix of chronicling your story, but also in the hope that it might inspire others to kind of want to go and, be better and do better?
Definitely. I mean, I do quite a lot of mentoring for people, for young guys who are keen on doing business and just not sure how to go. And in a lot of cases, actually, young guys have done very well. They've made a lot of money, but still not sure how to structure anything or how to go forward or what they should invest in, and just someone they can bounce their ideas off.
Yeah. What's something that you believe about in business that many or a lot of folk watching the show might disagree with? Something you believe about business that many would disagree with?
Well, I think finding your passion. A lot of people say, find something you're passionate about and do that. And I totally disagree with that. I think it's find something you can make some money out of and do that.
Yeah, it's interesting because the first number of businesses that we talked about, there clearly wasn't like a deep passion for you. And you've found something later in life in Turners, which connects up two of those things together. Does that mean that you've got more of a attachment to the Turners business, or are you still able to be very detached and very calculated, this is an asset kind of thing?
Oh no, I'm pretty attached to Turners.
Right.
I do like being there. I've been there 18 years now,
Yes.
so it's a long time.
Yes.
And when I started, I never would have thought that. I don't think I've done anything for more than kind of 6 or 7 before, so it's pretty long term.
Yeah.
But no, I really, really enjoy the business, enjoy the people, enjoy the type of business it is too.
Yes. At what stage did money stop solving problems and start creating new ones?
That's an interesting question because, a lot of people, if you say money does cause you problems, because it does, because you've got to manage it. It's one thing getting it, but the next thing is don't lose it. So, I think that probably happened quite a long time ago. I equally worry about making it and not losing it, I guess, at the moment, or doing the right thing with it, because, everyone talks about how much money you got in the bank. I've never got any money in the bank, because I want it invested and working for me.
Mm-hmm.
But there's sort of a crossover, isn't there? There's sort of, you start off working for money, and at some point money starts working for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that I wrote about recently, is that one of the things that you don't know about money before having it is that once you've got it, it needs quite a lot of work to maintain and make sure you don't lose it and you grow it in line or exceeding the market expectations and returns. And the thing that's funny and behind that is that the skill of making money is actually quite different from the skill of keeping money and generating returns from investing. And I see this in entrepreneurs quite a lot. Clearly, I asked you before, I said, are you more of an entrepreneur or more of an investor? You're both, right? Because those things are not opposites. But I see a lot of entrepreneurs that have done super, super well at this, but they've never developed the skill of investing along the way. And they go into a space that they are completely new to, and they think that those skills will transfer quite cleanly across, but they're two quite different things.
Yeah, I think that is true. I mean, you see guys come in from corporates who don't tend to be entrepreneurial, and they'll go into an entrepreneurial company and it doesn't work out very well. We've hired a few guys over the years who do that, but the opposite also doesn't work, is when you're a good entrepreneur, you're not necessarily good at managing a company. And I for sure am not good at managing a company. I know I'm not, and I make sure I have people working for or with me that are good at that. fill in those gaps.
When did you last feel genuinely out of your depth, and what did you do about it?
Well, it's probably not a business story, but a few years ago we bought a house in the US. So my son lives in the US, so we wanted a base to be sort of close to him when we went over there. And we bought a house in Beverly Hills. And then it was a condo rather than a house. But when we went to sell that, it's honestly the most difficult thing I've ever done. It sounds stupid, but the amount of red tape in America is just unbelievable, and it's completely different to buying or selling a house here.
Huh.
And in the end, I said to my wife, she's better at admin stuff than I am by far, and I said, I just can't do it. You have to do it. I can't do it. I'll give up. It's probably the only time I've ever said that. Yeah, so it was a weird situation.
Is it one of those things that are remarkably easy to get into, some things that end up being very, very difficult to get out of, like a marriage, starting a business, having a baby?
This was exactly that. It was very easy to buy this property and really hard to sell it.
I'll come to my alternate universe career question in that case, Grant. So there's another Grant Baker. He's living in a completely different universe, if you believe in that theorem, but he's found a different career than being the entrepreneur investor that you are today, but it's deeply satisfying to him. What is that career?
Oh, it's kind of a two-part answer really here. So I would have always wanted to be a Formula One driver. I thought, when I was a kid and stuff, that would have been me. But I've realised the more I know about Formula One, probably the less good I would have been at that. Not skillful enough, and not the right temperament. So I always thought that. But the other thing I would have been interested in doing is being an archaeologist.
Archaeologist?
Yeah, I find that, the old Egyptology and history and stuff. I love all that sort of stuff and read a lot about it. And I thought, completely non-commercial type of career, but it would have been something you could have a passion for and probably wouldn't make very much money out of, but it would have been really interesting.
Have you come across Graham Hancock?
No.
Oh, thoroughly recommend. He's a journalist turned author turned documentary maker, and he's got these alternate theorems on how humanity is formed over time, some of which have been proven to be true. So he's found and formed opinions on things like the last ice age and when it changed and when it happened, and he's been at the ire of the archaeology industry world because he's not trained in that space, but he's a smart guy and he's really curious. So would thoroughly recommend. He's done some wonderful podcasts, which is a good way to consume someone. I'll share a link with you. So how do people find you, Grant? You've got a big Instagram following, particularly for your cars. What's your handle? How do they find you on LinkedIn, etc.?
Well, on LinkedIn, I don't really do much. I don't really know how LinkedIn works properly. I get lots of messages from people through there, but I'm not very active on it. I'm really bad at answering messages. But on Instagram, I'm Grant K. Baker.
Grant K. Baker.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if you just look up Grant Baker, I think you'll get a hit on me.
Yeah.
The only Grant Baker who's got a following on there apart from me is a South African surfer.
Okay.
So he's definitely not me.
Easy to delineate between the two of you. Yeah. What a great conversation we've had today, Grant. I'm really grateful that you could come on the show and share your journey where you're up to right now, having had a book about your life and involvement with cars and business that's just come out. And I look forward to kind of following where you go from here and also following Liam's fortunes as well.
All right. Well, thanks very much for having me. Really appreciate it. It's been fun.
What a pleasure. Thanks.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks so much for listening to the show. If you've gotten this far, I reckon you've probably enjoyed it. And there's more available for you in the form of my book, 2 Commas. It's available on my website, joshcomrie.com. I've done an Audible version, which is on amazon.com, and there's a Kindle one kicking around on either of those resources as well. I've had some wonderful, unsolicited feedback from early readers. They describe it as being punchy, clear, helpful, and actionable. What it's not is a guide on how to sell your company. You can go to ChatGPT for that. It's more insightful, experiential-based, and a bit of a blend of psychology, philosophy, and what it takes to build something meaningful, and what all that means afterwards. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you grab yourself a copy.